Julio Iglesias, the Munich Night and the Forgotten Promise. This story is a dramatic interpretation based on real events from Julio Iglesias's life. Munich, December 1978. The city was buried under snow, the streets were silent, and backstage at the Olympiahalle, the world's most famous Latin singer stood frozen, holding a telephone. Julio, your father, he doesn't have much time left. His mother's voice trembled. Those words, traveling thousands of miles, shattered Julio's world. His father, Dr. Julio Iglesias Puga, the hero of his life, his first teacher, his harshest critic, was dying, and Julio was about to perform a concert. No one knew that every note he would sing on stage that night would be a farewell. No one could see that the smile under the spotlights concealed a shattered heart. In that moment, Julio Iglesias wasn't just a superstar. He was a son trying to reach his father one last time. But sometimes the greatest expressions of love happen in the quietest moments. Julio's father was no ordinary man. Dr. Julio Iglesias Puga had fought in the Spanish Civil War, survived under Franco's regime, studied medicine, and built his family from nothing. He was stern, disciplined, a father who never showed his emotions. Young Julio had done everything to earn his father's approval. He played football. His father watched but rarely applauded. He studied law. His father nodded but rarely praised. He became a singer. His father remained silent. Singing isn't a career, it's a hobby, Dr. Puga had once said. Real men become doctors, lawyers, they don't go on stage and sing songs. Those words had burned into Julio's soul. For years, every album, every concert, every success, all of it was an attempt to prove something to his father. But Dr. Puga never fully approved. He never said, "I'm proud of you," until that phone call came. Autumn 1978 was the peak of Julio's career. His European tour was breaking records. Every night a different city. Every night thousands of fans. Every night inexhaustible energy. But that energy hid behind a mask. In October a call came from Madrid. His mother, Charo, spoke with a trembling voice. "Julio, your father is ill. His heart, the doctors are worried." Julio wanted to fly home immediately, but his father wouldn't allow it. "Finish your tour," he said on the phone, his voice weaker than ever. "Professionals keep their word. But father, don't argue. Go, do your job. I'll be here." Julio went, but every night, before going on stage, he called Madrid. Every night he heard his father's voice, growing weaker, growing more distant, and every night the fear inside him grew. In mid-November the situation worsened. The doctors were clear. Days, maybe weeks. Julio wanted to leave the tour. But his father insisted again. "You have the Munich concert. Germany is waiting for you. Go." "But what if, Julio?" His father's voice carried that old authority one last time. "An Iglesias never breaks his word. You taught me that. Now go and show them." Munich, December 15, 1978. Julio sat in his hotel room, watching the snow fall outside his window. The concert would begin at 8 that evening. The plane ticket was in his pocket. Madrid, first flight in the morning. But the voice inside whispered, "It might be too late." The phone rang. His mother. "Julio, the doctors, they say it could be tonight." Julio's world spun. I'm coming right now." "No." His mother's voice was surprisingly calm. "Your father is listening to you. On the radio. The concert will be broadcast live. You know that. Wants to hear you." "But mother, I should be there." "Julio." His mother was crying but her voice was resolute. "Your father spent his whole life trying to teach you one thing. Responsibility. Honor. Keeping your word. Now, show him, go on stage, sing, and he will hear you. One last time." The phone went dead. Julio stood there, receiver in hand. Outside, snow was falling. Inside, a storm was raging. His manager knocked on the door. "Julio, are you ready? The car is waiting." Julio stood up. He looked in the mirror. His eyes were red, but his face was determined. "Yes," he said. "I'm ready." The Olympiahalle was packed that night. 12,000 people had come to see Julio Iglesias. Stage lights sparkled. The orchestra took their places. Excitement filled the air. But backstage, Julio was praying silently, not to God, to his father. "Father," he whispered, closing his eyes. "This is for you. Every note, every word, every breath, for you. Julio walked onto the stage. When the spotlight found him, 12,000 people rose to their feet. Applause, whistles, screams. But Julio heard none of it. He was only thinking of a hospital room, thousands of miles away. He stood before the microphone. He smiled, that famous, captivating smile. But his eyes told a different story. Guten Abend, München, he said, his voice trembling. Tonight I'm singing for someone very special, for the man who brought me into this world, who taught me strength, who taught me never to give up. The crowd applauded, but no one knew the true meaning of Julio's words. The orchestra began. The first song, Un canto a Galicia, a song to Galicia, his father's birthplace, the land where his father's roots lay. Julio began to sing, and in that moment, something broke inside him. The concert was the most emotional performance of Julio's career. Every note was a farewell. When he sang La vida sigue igual, he remembered his father's words in the hospital. Life goes on, Julio, and you will go on. When he sang Manuela, he thought of his mother's name. Charo's real name was Manuela, and how his father had fallen in love with her. When he sang Gwendolyn, he remembered that night at Eurovision. His father had watched on television, then called and said for the first time, "You did well." Between each song, Julio rushed backstage, checking the phone. No news, still alive, still listening. The concert approached 2 hours. Julio announced the final song, Soy, I Am, a song about identity, roots, family. But before singing, he leaned into the microphone and whispered, so quietly that only those in the front rows could hear, "Te quiero, papa. I love you, father." Then he sang. His voice was stronger than it had ever been. More real than it had ever been. When the song ended, the Olympia Hala was on its feet applauding. But Julio was only running, backstage, to the phone. He grabbed the phone. His hands were shaking. He dialed the number. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3, Julio, his mother's voice. "Mother, is he?" He listened. His mother was crying but smiling. Every note, every word, I held the radio to his ear. And he smiled, Julio. His eyes were closed, but he smiled. Julio's knees buckled. Is he still there?" "Yes, weak but here. He wants to talk to you." A rustling sound. Then, that familiar but now very weak voice. "Julio. Father." Julio's voice broke. "Father, I'm sorry that I couldn't be there." "No." Dr. Puga's voice was a whisper, but determined. "You were exactly where you needed to be. On stage, singing, living. But Julio." A cough. A pause. Then those words, the words Julio had waited his entire life to hear. I'm proud of you." A long, heavy silence. "Father? I'm here, just tired. Rest. I'm coming. I'll be there in the morning." "I know." A breath. "Julio, I love you." The phone went dead. Julio crouched in the hallway, weeping. Crew members surrounded him, but no one knew what to say. Because those tears weren't just pain, they were liberation. Julio didn't sleep that night. He went to the airport, waited for the first flight. As dawn broke, the plane took off. Munich to Madrid, from snow to sun. On the plane he looked out at the clouds, and for the first time, he truly understood his father. Dr. Puga wasn't a man who didn't show emotion. He was a man who didn't know how to show it. War, poverty, loss, life had hardened him. But inside, there had always been a deep love. A love shown not with words, but with actions. Finish your tour. Professionals keep their word. Go and show them. These were different ways of saying I love you. The plane landed in Madrid. Julio rushed to the hospital. The corridors were familiar, like the hospital where he himself had stayed years ago. 6th floor. Dim light, silence, room 412. He opened the door. His mother sat beside the bed. His father was sleeping, breathing, weak but steady. "He waited for you," his mother said quietly. "All night. Julio will come," he said. "My son will come." Julio sat on the edge of the bed. He took his father's hand. It was cold but still strong. "I'm here, father," he whispered, "just like I promised." Dr. Puga's eyes slowly opened. He looked at his son. He smiled. "I knew," he said, "and Iglesias never breaks his word." Dr. Julio Iglesias Puca died 3 days later. His family was by his side. Julio was holding his hand. And with his last breath, his father whispered once more, "Keep singing." The funeral was held in Madrid. Hundreds came. But Julio didn't speak. He only stood before his father's coffin and sang quietly, "Un canto a Galicia." But strong. Returning from the cemetery, his mother gave him an envelope. "Your father left this for you." Julio opened the envelope. Inside was an old photograph. Little Julio in his football uniform, on his father's shoulders. On the back, in his father's handwriting, "Julio, you were always my hero. Now you're the world's hero. But to me, you're still that little boy, full of dreams, fearless, pure. Never change. Keep singing. With love, your father." Julio still keeps that letter. He takes it on every tour. At every concert, he carries it in his pocket. Years later, in an interview, a journalist asked, "Julio, what is your greatest regret?" Julio paused. His eyes drifted into the distance. Then he answered, "Not telling my father I love you enough. But then I realized I was telling him every day, with every song, with every stage, every time I kept my word." "Did he tell you?" Julio smiled. "Yes, on his last day, but actually, he was telling me every day. I just didn't know how to listen."